Meet Jay Wright.
This is Jay Wright.
And Aloha Nick.
My name is Aloha Nick. Let a dude talk then.
Two dudes
We are the dudes.
from Los Angeles.
Dudes, keep it real.
Grabbing life by the balls. This is Fortress
Did I nail it?
of SoliDudes.
What is good? Hey, people. It is episode 8, Fortress of SoliDudes podcast. Thanks for listening.
You know it.
All right. So we have a new series that we're introducing today.
Brand new.
Brand new. And you're absolutely going to love it. We're super excited about this series. We already have like at least 15 episodes mapped out just on this series alone. And it's called our Dream Park series. Dream Parks. Exactly.
You know
Thank
it.
you.
First try.
Shout out Dreamweaver.
Work for Wayne's World.
So here's what Dream Parks is. As many times as you've been to a Disney theme park or a Universal theme park, we probably are not going to get into Magic Mountain or anybody else for that matter. Maybe Knott's, again, for the SoCal residents. But this is where...
Probably Knott's, though.
Yeah. So the idea here is that when you're spending time in these theme parks, we all are geniuses. We all know better. And so when you're going through these parks and you see things, you're like, oh, come on, why didn't they do this?
Right.
That's exactly what the genesis of Dream Parks is. If we are dreaming the parks up ourselves, what would we do differently? And of course, Dream Park episode 1 is fixing the mistakes of Tomorrowland.
Boom!
Yeah.
You nailed that, Jason.
Well, thank you, buddy. I'm quite the nailer,
He is.
allegedly.
I mean, we're starting off with the hot topic. Tomorrowland, we need to talk about. This could be a two-parter, maybe.
Maybe. Or it could be our longest episode ever. Let's see. Let's see how it goes. So far, the longest episode ever was Pixar Pier, but again, it was also the most viewed as of now. But
what up?
Anyway, blah, blah, blah. So, all right, let's go back to how Tomorrowland has been a problem since day one.
Jason, please give the people a little bit of facts about this, some Snapple facts.
All right. So when Walt was building Disney, right, 1954, got to the grand opening in 1955. Basically took about a year to build the park. They were rushing to get everything done. Tomorrowland wasn't ready. Like, it was costly. It was difficult. They didn't know what quite they were doing. They spent so much time on the west side of the park with the Rivers of America and Jungle Cruise and the castle and all the Fantasyland, which were all the Disney movies at the time. Tomorrowland, they were like, what are we going to do? Because they didn't have the technology. They were running out of money. They were running out of time. So from day one, I am going to say Tomorrowland has been the most troubled area of Disneyland. Like, it's just the way that it is from the very beginning, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So it's gone through so many expansions. You had the expansion in 59 when they added the monorail, okay?
Whoa.
And the subs. That was the first giant expansion after they saw in 55 that, the first Tomorrowland wasn't that great. Then you had the next giant expansion, which was in 67, okay? And that's when they added the Carousel of Progress and redid, other parts of Tomorrowland. You get into the 70s, you finally got Space Mountain. You get into the 80s, and you got Star Tours and Captain EO back to back. They opened within 5 months of each other once Eisner and Wells came into to power.
Shout out George Lucas.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Eisner did. He came in and he's like, we're going to get Michael Jackson and we're going to get George Lucas, and boom, all of a sudden Star Wars and Michael Jackson were in Disney parks, and holy crap, that changed the world. Thank
Waiting
you.
on the world to change.
Yeah, Captain EO, thank you. We are here to change the world. All right, so then you fast forward and Tomorrowland sort of lost its way again. And then in the 90s, we got the new Tomorrowland, 1998, I think it was, when the new Tomorrowland opened.
I think you're right, Jason.
I think it is. But I personally loved that version of Tomorrowland. Most people hated it and continue to rip on it. But the problem, here's the biggest...
Was that the newest one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The biggest truth I can say about the biggest problem I can truthfully say about that version of Tomorrowland is that they just sort of let it rot. I kind of feel like they hated on the designers of Tomorrowland '98, because I feel like they just let it die on the vine, no pun intended, because they had fruit trees and things of like growing, fruit and stuff in the future.
Were those the same designers that did Euro Disney?
Yes. So that's why there was so much similarity when you look at Disney Paris, which went through its own struggles as well and changed its name from Euro Disney to later to Disneyland Paris. But I still have this like really cool it's almost like a Benetton, like it's such a high quality like sweatshirt, and it's all like stitched, and it says Euro Disney on it. It's like from opening day. Yeah.
Whoa, that's
really
some
cool.
Yesterland shit right there, man.
Absolutely. So, all right. So back to Tomorrowland in Anaheim. So here's the problem: is that it is now 2018. The park is now 63 years old. Happy birthday just passed. Disney birthday just passed.
Happy birthday.
All right. And you've got a 63-year-old land. You know that some of those buildings are still like original buildings from opening day.
I can tell.
That whole side, yeah, right? We all can tell. That whole side of Buzz Lightyear and even the other start of the side with those giant murals.
Oh, yeah.
And the Star Wars entrance and the Buzz, how they're like matching, side by side entrances. Those facades and starts were there in 1955. So there's a lot of issues. I'm going to take a breath, Nick. You start talking about how we know what Tomorrowland is today.
Right.
And Nick, walk through a little bit about like what Tomorrowland looks like today before we get into the dream park that needs to be tomorrow.
So currently in Tomorrowland, which is located right of the hub off Main Street, USA, once you approach, you're going to see the rockets. The rockets have been a staple. They've been moved in a few different places, but right now could be the most inconvenient spot ever. It's literally in the middle of the entrance.
I thought it was a great idea at the time, but again, now with everybody with strollers and ECVs, it's become the biggest.
And there's no
bottleneck.
off season to Disneyland anymore. It's always busy, so it just doesn't make sense. The Rockets, great ride, inconvenient location. Preferably to the left, we'll see Buzz Lightyear's AstroBlasters.
Right.
Another questionable ride. It is a good Band-Aid on what they did with Tomorrowland, but it's a questionable ride.
You know what that was most recently? If we go back in time.
Hello.
There were so many different things at that building house. So it has the Circle Vision movies back in the day. Do you remember
that's
those?
right,
When they
yeah.
had the 9 screens. So that Circle Vision was off to the left. It was, and then it became Rocket Rods. And the funny thing is that Rocket Rods went on the track. It kind of killed 2 attractions in one because it took over the track of the People Mover.
Assholes.
But the line for Rocket Rods took over Circle Vision. So all that whole building just became the line.
That was Q space.
And then you went underground and then came up and you were in the center of where the People Mover was, and that was Rocket Rods. So
F you, Rocket Rods.
and now it's just empty People Mover space, which is again one of the problems.
Yep, absolutely. It is a Band-Aid and a huge scar of Tomorrowland. It just lets you know that there was once life there.
Yeah.
But to keep going to the left of AstroBlasters is an outdoor restaurant that they sell the Galactic Burger, which is choice, and that also houses the new Jedi show for the kids.
Yeah,
Jedi
right.
training.
Yeah, it's and then even with that, that stage at Tomorrowland Terrace has been there again since the 60s. It looks like it.
Absolutely.
And it used to come up and down from underground, and the band would appear from underground, and so it was like live music, and it was like cover bands, especially like in the 80s. And they'd come out and play like hit music, and it was cover bands doing hit music.
Strictly Billy Joel.
And it was great. It was fun. But then, songs started getting more risque and it wasn't very Disney. And they sort of killed the whole idea of like having current music in the parks. Quick little tidbit about that stage. You may or may not know this, but that stage is so old, and again, was not thought of in today's terms of where every Disney detail is so overthought and so safe and everything. Literally, there's a hole in the ground. There's like a pipe, right? That's like, the size of, let's say it's smaller than let's say it's slightly bigger than a golf ball. Okay. And it's this pipe that comes out of the ground in the planter behind that stage. So between, let's say, the Tomorrowland Terrace stage and between that and Nemo, there's a planter, right? There's a pipe that sticks out of the ground. And the sweeper, right, the custodial staff, literally when it was time for the band to come up, would go over to that hole and push their broomstick upside down into that hole, and that is how the stage was raised and lowered. The operating mechanism at any moment of the day was literally just out in public, sitting there, and that's how the stage raised and lowered for every show.
Genius.
It's crazy, because you think about that now, and like everything with Disney is so like calculated and thought on, whatever, and literally it was just like, oh yeah, here's the button. Boop. So freaking bizarre.
Yeah, that is a dated thing.
I believe that's been changed since now. Again, I can't.
I don't think so. I think one of the last times we were there, you pointed to the planner. I think there was like either a button or the pole. I think there's something still in the planner though to kind of get the whole show rolling. I
can't 100% confirm it, but it was absolutely true at one point. So
that's amazing.
Please continue our tour.
of
current Tomorrowland.
Doodaloo, doodaloo.
Yep.
So just moving on from that, you're gonna see Nemo Submarine's Voyage. I think it's called Nemo Submarine Voyage. That ride, not my favorite. Kind of a waste of space, but it has some Snapple facts. Jason?
Well, the thing about the Finding Nemo Submarine Voyage, so I don't love it either, but I am glad that they brought the submarines back out of mothballs, because literally the pool, the lagoon, was just sitting there empty. And I'm like, why would you just close a ride like for no reason? Like that was really upsetting. So even though it's still, they pulled a Universal a little bit, and there's too many screens underwater, I feel, but whatever. I mean, it's cute. The kids like it. Everyone loves Finding Nemo. So it's a really cool, unique version of it. I thought it was very clever to turn that into, taking a submarine ride around Australia and running into Nemo and Dory. I give them credit for that. I don't need to ride it, but I mean, it's cute. I like that they did it. And again, it's much better than wasting all that real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it does. It's the ride like mechanism and getting in and feeling that claustrophobic atmosphere. And it's just a poor way of getting people in and out. And it just takes forever. Well,
right. And again, mind you, when that was put in 1959, you didn't have 75,000 people a day with, ice cream bars and strollers and everything else. So it wasn't a big deal on the loading and unloading, and people had time and you weren't stressed about it. And when that was installed as also, so there's 8 submarines, right? That roam the lagoon, right? They usually only run 6 or 7 at a time, but there's 8 total. So when they put that in, that actually ranked Disneyland as being in the top 10 armies of the world, because they had more submarines than,
that's a fleet.
Yeah, it was. It put them in the, I believe it was 7th. It was either 7th or 8th of the world's top submarine fleets.
Wow.
Isn't that insane?
Walt Disney, you bastard.
Well, they thought about that because, again, it was the 50s. So it was like, it was America versus Russia, and it was the arms race and all of that. And
that's so cool.
So, yeah, it's just a useless little fact there.
That's amazing. So just past that is also, this is kind of awesome, is a monorail stop. And it's the only monorail stop within the Disney park. One of my favorite places over there. And just next to the monorail is also the Disneyland Day 1 attraction, Autotopia.
Yeah, Autotopia is still there, even though it's not as interesting as a concept as it was, obviously, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s of like, oh, it's your kid's first chance to drive a car, because now everybody can drive Grand Theft Auto in their own home. But do you know at one point there were 3 Disney Autopia? It got so popular that there were 3 Autopias open at the same time. There was Autopia, there was Junior Autopia, and there was Midget Autopia. There were 3 Autopias open with different size cars.
So they had a ride section for height challenge people there?
Yes, exactly.
Really?
Yep.
Wow,
Yeah.
Disney, you guys have been so progressive.
Well, that was one of the things. Like, if you remember going there as a kid, and even now, right there, you can't drive your own car unless you can reach the pedal. So at some point, they were like, okay, well, let's make some other cars that kids can reach the pedal. So there were multiple versions of Autopia going back.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yep.
You know what's crazy is that I was just at a Walt Disney Family Museum, and they have one of the midget cars there.
That's right.
On display. So
That's right.
boom.
You know what I'm talking about.
I sure do.
Yeah.
And just on from that, which again, just on from that is the Carousel of Progress, which used to hold America Sings, but now is currently holding Star Wars meet and greet and Star Wars foam merch.
Yeah. Star Wars Launch Bay. Again,
Is that what it's called?
it's officially called Star Wars Launch Bay.
I just know like that building has pretty much been that type of thing because they had like this. They had like the Iron Man headquarters.
They
there.
threw Avengers in the top floor for a
Yeah.
little bit.
It was on the top.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh.
they were using upstairs for meet and greets as well.
That's crazy.
At one point, it was both. At one point, it was Star Wars on the bottom and Marvel on the top.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know Marvel was a bottom.
They're a top. Yeah. Kylo's a bottom. But another little interesting tidbit, too. During the Christmas holiday, they were using the outside of the upper area of Launch Bay as a Club 33 private lounge.
Ooh.
So it got so busy during the holiday season that Club 33 members were using that upper area, and they had it was so nice. It was all all your drinks and hot cocoa and cookies and stuff, and you got to just like lounge on these nice couches and things that they put out there, and you're just sitting up there checking out this view, which you
Looking
would,
at the peasants
which
with your
you-
Club 33.
No, but you would get this view that you would never have. When do you
Right.
get to? You don't get to be on the second story of Tomorrowland very much
No.
anymore, and that's even higher. Like you can be on second story of Tomorrowland when you're above Space Mountain, waiting
Right.
in line, right? But that's about it.
And there's no view.
and there's no view. But back in the day, People Mover, you'd be up on the second floor. The Rockets, you'd be way up high, right? But like you don't get to go up high anymore in Tomorrowland. But
That's true.
there was this little special thing for the
And-
holidays there. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, just onto that is the staple and probably the face of Tomorrowland, Space Mountain,
Exactly.
which we all love. It's a fan favorite since its inception. Is still an hour wait. It's still the most popular fast pass within the park, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard to believe that ride is over 40 years old now. 77.
That's amazing.
They had real astronauts come and grand open that ride.
Wow.
Actually, yeah, it was a really big deal. It was cool.
What astronauts do they have?
When you see
Tom Hanks.
I think it was no, it wasn't Tom Hanks.
Oh, damn it.
You're getting me right now. But
Kevin Bacon?
But it was some of the real astronauts. It was
Buzz
like,
Aldrin.
it was probably Buzz Aldrin. It was probably John Glenn.
John Glenn. That's
I think,
awesome.
I think. But the funny part is when you look back at the like the pictures in some of the books that I have about it, and like just the 70s suits, dude. Like, oh my God, they were just too much.
I love it.
Yeah.
So yeah, just on from the most famous one is also the Tomorrowland Theater.
Tomorrowland Theater, right, which again has, my God, like that's had so many different faces on it.
What's your
between-
favorite show that they had running there ever?
Captain EO, of course.
Yeah.
By a mile.
Yeah, that one's so good.
Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, forget it.
I didn't like, and it used to scare me as a kid.
Magic Journeys used to scare me. Magic Journeys was in there before Captain EO, and it was this movie, and it had this witch. It was sort of like a 3D movie they did in conjunction with Kodak, just to again show the wow wonder. It's the first like big foray Disney did into 3D and teaming up to do something with like big production value. And it was kind of scary.
That's
like
crazy.
yeah, at least to me. But again, I was really young then.
That's amazing. Yeah, that theater, for me, I would have to be Captain EO. And then I really like the one that they have right now, The Path of the Jedi.
Path of the Jedi is also extremely important, and it's a great editing feat. Shout out to your field of work there, Nick, as a fantastic video editor as well. But they didn't do that much to make the theater better, but the content is so good in that Path of the Jedi.
Yeah, and they really use all the elements to kind of gear, and they know their strengths in that theater for sure.
Yeah, and they showed us just how great Path of the Jedi is, because when they temporarily took it out to put in the preview of Ant-Man, it was like, this sucks.
Yeah, right?
because
That's
the
so
content
true.
wasn't that good.
Yeah, they really kind of got screwed. Like the Incredibles one was still rolling, doing the promotion for that, and it really Ant-Man should have been in that Tomorrowland. The theater in California Adventure.
Well, right, or they should have put it like
Where's the continuity?
they should have put it in Bugs Land.
Yeah.
Duh.
Oh, weird.
Ant-Man, Bugs Land, and Bugs Land is going to become, Marvel Land. Like, duh.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
future dream park.
But just next to the Tomorrowland Theater is the Space Trader, which is like probably besides the stores on Main Street, USA, my favorite shopping area of Disneyland. I love that area, and that's a place that's gone through so many changes. It had the Starcade at one point,
Right.
which was
Starcade
awesome.
was so awesome. It was a 2-floor arcade that was sandwiched right between Space Mountain, the Space Mountain bathrooms, basically, and the Star Trader. Yeah, and and the cool thing about the Starcade too. So it's 2 floors of again arcade games. And when Tron came out, which was again 1983, I believe, the first Tron, one whole floor was all Tron. So it was all Tron video games, and because it was Disney and it was their movie, like the whole place it wasn't themed like Flynn's Arcade from the movie, but it was all themed, and all of the art and everything
That's awesome.
was all of the things, from Tron, and it was so busy. I loved that video game.
Wow.
Total,
I didn't know that. That's so cool.
It was all decked out with Tron, and it's just unfortunate now that again like arcades are not that special anymore. And now they literally just reopened this within a week or so of us recording this. They just reopened that space as inside air conditioned line for Space Mountain.
Yeah, the upstairs, right?
Freaking do. I'm so tired of them wasting space on like something that used to be special, and now it's just it's parking storage now for
Right.
strollers.
I mean, realistically, that queue line needs AC. Like,
That line does need AC, but they could just have fixed that with what's on the roof.
Right.
Don't waste what was already another attraction.
Yeah, I think that it's just a temporary thing. I think Disney knows that they're going to have to do something eventually, and it's just a quick fix to kind of put some new paint and a new rope and boom, boom. Because what's funny is that you just said that someone, they just opened it. Someone posted a video of them going through the line, and there's an empty area in the middle that looks down to the first floor up there.
Yes.
It's a lunchroom for the cast members, so people were waiting in line and spying down on cast members eating their food, which is pretty funny.
And that's been rehashed since again. It was the Starcade, and then it was a merchandise area,
Right,
expanded from Star Trader, and then it became like the preview area for Big Six. What was that? Is that what that was
Big
called?
Hero 6.
Big Hero 6. Sorry. And then Wreck-It Ralph also had a little bit of a meet and
that's
greet in there
right.
for
That's
a really
right.
short time. But again, you guys can do better. And Nick, you are teeing up the entire purpose of this episode is it seems like it's just a placeholder.
Yeah.
And 1998 to 2018, like it's time for Tomorrowland to get a makeover. Nothing's been announced.
Nope.
And this is exactly why we have this Dream Park episode. And don't forget Star Tours. We didn't forget you. Yes, of course. You're the final part on the tour of what is here currently.
Yeah.
So we got it. There's the grand tour of what is and little tidbits of like how things got there. But let's get into where this needs to go. Nick, if you are Aloha Nick, Imagineer extraordinaire, Dream Park, clean slate, what are you doing with Tomorrowland? Let's go.
Guys, this might be hard to hear for all of you. I am taking just Space Mountain and I'm tearing all of it down.
No way.
I'm redoing it, man. I'm going blank slate on this guy.
No way.
There's no more redressing buildings. We're tired of seeing that. That space can be utilized. Like you were saying, those early facades in the beginning are from 1955.
Yes.
Let's upgrade that. Let's start over and give it a facelift. This town needs an enema.
Shout out to Jack Nicholson. Okay, so again, I agree with you 97%. The only other thing I would keep, because they didn't move it to Galaxy's Edge, is Star Tours. You have to keep Star Tours. It's too powerful. So keep Star Tours, keep Space Mountain, blow up everything else.
Right.
And then I'm on the same page as you. Continue.
I mean, even Star Tours, like that ride is amazing. And you know what? Maybe you save elements, redo the ride. I mean, the actual ride mechanism you're not going to change, but you can change the line queue. I mean, they've already bandaged it so much by adding that other room.
Yeah.
It is great, but there's so much blank space. Like if you don't have the people mover there, let's get rid of the little graveyard you have of it there. Like we don't need to see that. And that's the other thing that keeps people like guessing and like, oh, back in my day is that there's still elements of it there. There's still a reflection of what it was at one point. And it's like you either get rid of it or you put the old attraction in there and modernize the ride.
That ride is now 30 years old. 31. It opened in 87. Like, I mean, it's amazing. Thank you, Disney, for it took you 25 years, but thank you for finally changing and learning that, like, we can change the screens out really fast. So every time there's a new Star Wars, part of the franchise that comes out, they're constantly updating the attraction experience. So thank you for finally doing that, because for 25 years it was Pee Wee Herman as Captain Rex going, "It's welcome aboard. It's my first trip too." Like, dude, like. Yeah. It was still
no, it's not
fun.
Rex. I've seen you 20 times, dog.
Yeah, but like, right, like we got it. Like, and he accidentally busts out and he act like, okay, we got it. But now they finally fixed that part.
Hold on, that was Pee Wee Herman?
It was totally Pee Wee Herman. It was Paul Rubens doing that voice for 25 years.
Very interesting that they kept that voice for so many years.
Well, they kind of looked the other way, just like, I mean, they also had Michael Jackson, right? But here's the other thing, that Paul Rubens still exists, because they kept those droids,
right? Yeah.
They're in the queue now, because the ride went back in time allegedly, and so the Rex droids with Pee Wee Herman's voice still spewing out like randomly, like short circuiting as you're approaching the baggage check part of the queue, and the Rex droids are being unpacked to be the new droids in the next ride. Awesome. So they kept them.
Continuity.
Yeah.
Loving it.
But that should have been moved to Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
If you built this whole Star Wars land, I mean, were they just being cheap? They didn't want to like move these vehicles. Like it should have all gone over there.
Yeah, and it just feels like, again, it doesn't feel like they're 100% on that. And it's still, if they're going to redo the land, I think you get rid of it, start over. It is a nice thing, and it is one of those things that will be appreciated more, and it's the first bit of Star Wars now in there, but I feel like you can come up with something else.
So what's the big idea of the next Tomorrowland, Nick? If you, in your dream park, you are only keeping Space Mountain. You've got a lot of land.
Yeah.
You basically have from the hub all the way to the train tracks going straight back, and then you've got all the way to the train tracks behind Nemo.
Right.
And
I'm getting rid of Nemo.
Okay, Nemo's gone.
Yeah, that footprint is too big. Autopia, I'm getting rid of that as well.
Yeah,
I am. It's too big of a footprint. It smells terrible over there. That there's no way it's good for you. It's people aren't entertained by that. Kids, again, like you were saying, they have a phone in front of them from the time they're born now, and they're not impressed by it.
I thought you were starting to say from the time they're boning.
Oh, but they're boning right away, right?
Whoopsie. Yeah.
But yeah, you get rid of all of it. There's so much of a footprint there. Let's actually make something new. My first bit for Tomorrowland is we're changing that name.
Okay.
Because that really puts them in a niche market, and every 5 years that you're not tomorrow, you're going to be outdated. You need to pick something and go with that.
Oh my
theme.
God. Okay, can I tag team here for a minute?
Tagging you in.
Here is the best name for the new Tomorrowland, because you're still going to be dealing with outer space. You call it Outside Land. Boom! A la the music festival.
That's it. That's a good one.
Well, I think that Buzz Lightyear could definitely be like repurposed, move that over, since you've made California Adventure basically Pixar Land anyways. Like that could be repurposed.
That's the rumor. You know,
Again, I don't agree that Star Tours should go. I just agree that Star Tours should be moved. So if we're both dream parking if we're working at two desks facing each other at Imagineering here,
kind of like what we're doing.
I'm gonna pull up Star Tours. You're gonna throw it in the trash. I'm gonna pull it up and move it behind Galaxy's Edge because they still have room in Galaxy's Edge.
Sure, if you can move it there, awesome.
We can do whatever we want.
Well, frick it.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll do it live.
Frickin' frick.
Frick.
Golly gosh darn.
All right, then I'm moving it.
Yeah.
I'll
All right.
keep
Well,
it,
that's what I would do too.
But that whole area just needs a facelift. And honestly, I think it needs to have a little bit of a vintage look to it, but keep with that theme. I mean, you've said it best. Tomorrowland is at its best when everything is really running. From, the People Mover to the rockets to all this stuff. That's what keeps it there is the life. There hasn't been life there in forever, and that's really what it's failing. If you want to go vintage on it, bring back an original attraction, maybe Mission to Mars?
Well, okay, so...
Or the inventions of... What's the other one that they had?
Well, okay, so wait. So Innoventions was something that took over the Carousel of Progress, then America Sings, then eventually came into be Innoventions. And the idea was it was sponsored, and here's what AT&T is going to make in the future, and here's what General Electric is going to make in the future.
Where Star Tours is?
Star Tours going way back,
Yeah.
that was Adventure Through Inner Space.
That's the one I want.
Where you shrink down to the size of a snowflake through the microscope.
So now that they have this
in the Haunted
amazing...
Mansion chairs.
That's what we need. We want those Omni movers back. Keeps people going. It's a people eater. Maybe we do that, but the technology that you have now, you could have a tip of the hat to the old school, and utilizing that space. I mean,
they did which is really kind of weird. So at Disneyland, right, it was Adventure Through Inner Space, and one of the funny things was when you shrunk down really low, then at the top of the room. Do you remember that ride?
No.
Okay, yeah, you're too young, I think.
Yeah, because Star Tours came out like when I was conceived.
What a kiddo. Yeah, me too. So there was this part in the ride where you're down to the size of a snowflake, and there's this giant eyeball looking up at you from the top of the room, through the microscope, right? But check this out. So that was that ride. So it was about science, and then microscope, right? And then it turned into Star Tours. So check this out. In Florida, in the it was the Health Pavilion in Epcot. It was called gosh darn it! It wasn't called the Health Pavilion, but it was a big gold dome.
Oh yeah.
Wonders of Life. Wonders of Life.
Wonders of Life.
And there, you would get in a Star Tours vehicle, same ride construction, and it was called Body Wars. And you went into person's mouth, and you went through their digestive system and through the heart and through all of that. So isn't that funny how the original Disney Tomorrowland, those two rides that are in the same place, ended up being the genesis of the ride in Florida?
That's funny.
The old Science Microscope and Star Tours put them together, and it made Body Wars in Florida. Weird.
That's crazy.
Right?
That's like an episode of the Magic School Bus.
Kind of, sort of. Here's the thing that I think is sort of causing so much problem and paralysis with Tomorrowland is that there's just not a big idea. So unless they would have made that all Star Wars, which they could have turned that into Star Wars.
So glad they didn't. I'm
glad they didn't too. But what's the big idea? That's the hard part, because you've got a little bit of Star Wars, you've got Space Mountain, which again is just space exploration, and then you've got Buzz Lightyear, which is kind of spacey but not really, and then you've got submarines that kind of belong in Fantasyland because it's Nemo. I mean, they should have just started the queue on the other side or something at this point. You got the monorail, which is not that futuristic anymore. You've got the People Mover tracks, which are being wasted. You've got the cars that aren't what's the next big thing? Do they turn it all into Marvel and call it a day? Do they turn it all into Tron? Tron is not, I don't think they're going to be doing any more Tron, which is unfortunate because I think Tron is a fascinating movie.
The Tron ride has to be the thing.
But why?
Why?
Because then we're back to hodgepodge. So if we've got Space Mountain and we've got Tron, what's the land? Just Space Coaster Land?
Well, you make it so it's like the thrill part of the ride of the whole park. So, I mean, let's be honest. We've seen the videos from Shanghai Disney. The Tron ride looks freaking amazing.
They're so good.
That vehicle looks awesome. You can do so much with it at night. It really brings a life to the park. And that's something that's been missing from Tomorrowland for a while. I mean, if you have those two rides as the anchors, and you can really create just one family ride and have that whole part be more of like a thrill-seeking experience. I mean, isn't that what people have been knocking Disney for so many years? I mean, the one roller coaster that is a true roller coaster was built in the 70s is still their most popular ride.
Absolutely.
Give the people what they want.
Well, and I think that, again, like this is why Tomorrowland is such a dilemma. And this is our Dream Park episode. But honestly, like, I don't have a bunch of great answers. I mean, but just knowing the way Disney thinks, and that's not what Dream Park isn't. What do we think they should do? This is what we want them to do. Right?
Yeah.
So I feel like to honor Walt's original Tomorrowland, I like the idea of still looking forward. But the problem I feel is that technology is moving so quickly, and I feel especially with, younger generations is like everything is now. And how can you possibly keep up with it?
Right.
That's why even in Paris, in the early 90s, they were like, no, we're going to make it based off of Jules Verne and we're going to call it Discoveryland. And that's what they tried to do with Tomorrowland 98. It just didn't take off as well as the one did
because they just put a bunch
Paris.
of rocks that look like French fries in front.
Well, there is that. And then people really hated when they painted Space Mountain to match too. I liked it.
I thought it was pretty dope.
I liked it because I still think that just big white Space Mountain is not that compelling.
No, but they're like kind of getting the idea with it now, and they like offer like type of like holograms and different art on it. I know for like Halloween, they make it kind of spooky, but really with a park like that, if you're going to have the Tron roller coaster come into that area, it's going to be where the Carousel of Progress is. It's got to be that area to the submarines.
Yeah, it's because it's going to take up a lot of real estate.
It's going to, but it's going to bring up that whole era. And it's also like a tip of the hat of the old school and new school. You're going to have the anchors of Space Mountain and that. Mm-hmm. So with that, I think they need a dark ride, a family-friendly dark ride with no to little height requirement to get everyone involved. Like you said, if there's a roller coaster, you can't exclude the little kids and you can't exclude grandma. You got to give them something to do.
True story.
So my bit would be, if you're really going to push Wreck-It Ralph and you're really going to have that franchise go, I give it a family-friendly dark ride in that area that deals with technology. But it's also amazing because she's, the girl in it is technically a princess, a Disney princess. So you could
Sarah
have her.
Silverman?
Is she? Is it Silverman?
Isn't it Sarah Silverman that did the voice of that girl?
There you go. I didn't know that.
I think it is.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Is she
pretty
the first,
easy voice to figure out.
Is she the first Disney Jew?
The big Disney Jewish raunchiest. Oh my God. I like her humor, but oh my God, she's so filthy.
Yeah, she is. But I mean,
Jimmy Kimmel, you traded up.
Yeah, you did. I think we love you, Jimmy. ASU.
She fell in love with fat Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah. Not my Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah, and so I mean, I think you give
Wreck-It Ralph. Wow, I
like that.
I never would have thought you would have brought that up.
Yeah, I mean, it has to do, and this is the other thing. It's like if you bring in the Tron cycles, I really want a Flint arcade there.
Well, they have to do that, and again, they have to make it interesting again. And again, you're Disney, you're mother effing Disney.
I have faith. They redid it.
Right when you did the Tron arcade that I referenced earlier back in '83, you made it bigger than just a row of video games.
Yep.
Like you made it like people playing against each other, and it was this whole thing. Like it was really cool. So imagine like how you put the effort into those silly games over at Pixar Pier, but like if you really made it 3D and really made people, take like the best version of a laser tag live game in a room you've ever played versus Dance Mania that you see where people are actually like loving a game, and then putting jumbotrons on so everyone who's not even playing the game but is like seeing what's happening, or people are playing the discs like they did in Tron or things like that. Like, come on, you're Disney. Like you could revolutionize what if someone's at home and said, "Oh, well, I don't need to go to Disney to play a video game because, I've got my, my game system at home, or I've got games on my phone." Yeah, but you know what? You don't have a room where the entire family or a bunch of teenagers can play against each other in 3D in a sound stage.
Right.
That Disney could like pimp out like nothing you've ever seen. You can't do that at your house. And that's where Disney could win, is making the experience that you cannot replicate at home. That's where I think it would be
what
great.
they'll probably do is make it a VR experience. You're already kind of seeing him do that, dabble in that with the Star Wars one at Downtown Disney.
Exactly.
So that's actually an amazing idea, and something that, that's a space that no other theme park has really touched yet. I mean,
watch our upcoming episode specifically on that Star Wars VR too. Just a teaser there.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. You have this blank canvas, and you can't really use what's done before as a template. You really need to think outside the box, and I think that's great.
Let me give you a shocker.
Uh-oh.
You ready?
Is it? Okay.
All right. This isn't thinking enough outside of the box, but I still think it would be so kick-ass. All right. In Walt Disney World in Florida, there was, and well, also in both parks, Florida and Anaheim, there was Mission to Mars. So you'd get in, you were in this round space capsule. The room would shake. There's a giant video screen on the bottom of the floor. There's a giant video screen on the top of the floor. On the bottom is the fire. On the top, you're going towards Mars, right? Well, when that sort of, and in the line, you were at like, Kennedy Space Center. Well, you're at Disneyland, but it looked like Kennedy Space Center. It was the 70s, and the person working, the cast member, would talk to the animatronic old 70s guy with the headphones on, talking about going to outer space, right? Then in California, they got rid of it, and then they turned into Pizza Port. So again, I can't stand when they just like waste an attraction and turned it into frickin' pizza, right? But in Florida, they changed it and it became Alien Encounter.
Yeah.
That ride, did you ever go on it?
I've never been to Florida, but I've seen what it is.
All right. That ride was so amazing, and I'm still angry at Disney for getting rid of that too soon.
Yeah.
It was too scary. It was too violent. It wasn't Disney enough. Bull crap. Like, come on. You're in Star Tours, and you're blowing up people in spaceships.
Yeah.
But because we don't see it, it's no big deal. Like, here's what was so great about. Let me walk you through that ride, and this is exactly why it needs to come back. Don't theme it to the movie Alien anymore, obviously, because that's.
Well, I mean, that was an
toast.
Eisner idea. They originally wanted Alien.
It was genius. Well, no, they did theme it to Alien, but I'm saying when you bring it back now in my dream park, we're gonna theme it to something else. Okay, but here was the whole point. So the same ride structure. Of you're all sitting in a room and you're in a spaceship, but it was modernized, right? And you go to outer space, and then they're showing you the magic of teleportation, okay, and the power of it. Well, we still don't have that technology, so this is still the future, right? You could still bring back. And what happened is something accidentally gets teleported back into your spaceship that didn't belong, and it's the alien from the movie Alien. It comes up, and the smoke and the fire, and everyone's screaming, and then the whole place goes black, and then you feel it breathing on your neck, and then it's dripping, and you hear people screaming, "Oh, it's coming this way," and then it eats them, and then you feel the blood dripping on you. It was so good.
Yeah.
And then they stopped it. And it would be because, again, too many complaints of this or that. And I was like, that was one of the stupidest things they ever did, because that was such a well-done attraction. Absolutely. That needs to come back to Disneyland Anaheim in my dream park.
I think, too, like, I've heard a rumor that the guy who played the alien through, the queue line, do you remember that? There was a guy it was almost like a Star Trek deal where he had like a fake prosthetic, but it was a man. Do you remember that?
No.
I'm pretty sure that's what it was. But if I remember, it's the principal from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And he had a sex scandal with a little kid. And I heard it was a reason why they took that out as well, as he was into that.
I didn't know.
He's the redhead guy.
No, I know that. I know that because I was creeped out because he actually, I used to run into him in Beverly Hills at this gym I was training at. I was so creeped out every time I saw him.
Was that the YMCA or the Boys and Girls Club?
Yeah, I'm not even going to shout them out because they didn't give me a good rate. But I was so creeped out when I would see that guy. All right, so
that's a great idea, though. I mean,
I just don't know what the franchise is at the moment. You know, maybe I wouldn't want them to dumb it down too much and be like Guardians of the Galaxy and like make it silly. No, I want it scary.
Yeah.
Because like it was so good and it was so unexpected.
And every kind of scary ride that Disney has becomes a landmark. And with the departure of Tower of Terror, there really is a need for another scary dark ride.
Right. So even imagine if, let's just say it was the same thing and they same idea, but just like Star Tours, every time a different alien comes, and maybe there's a whole nother attraction outside of it where kids and people are designing aliens and then those aliens get used in the attraction.
Right.
And it comes at different times. To which then it breathes on you and, you know, causes mayhem and whatever. And, you know, like there's all sorts of different ways that it could be done.
If we're going to stay on the IP thing and, you know, we brought up, you know, Wreck-It Ralph and that deals with technology. I mean, there has to be something for WALL-E.
WALL-E.
I mean, it just gives so much ammo for...
You don't like what they already have done with WALL-E?
You mean just like nothing?
Where everyone's just fat and rolling around in carts, eating everything in sight?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's just real life.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
They've already got the everyday attraction.
Yeah. My new favorite color is blue.
Yeah. And I can say that because I'm...
A lot to the Spirit jerseys. A lot to the ears that are rose gold and the churros that match.
Right.
What's
and
up, Wally?
And before you give me hate mail, I can say that because I'm a former fatty, so I'm speaking about myself.
Yeah. No comment.
Anyway, I don't know what they would do with WALL-E.
You could have like it be like a 3D screen experience, you know, helping them get off the ship and getting the plant. It could be a dark ride. I mean, here's the thing about having all these thrill rides in a VR ride and a scary ride is that you still need something for small kids and grandparents.
Well, WALL-E would be great for that. So if they did like, you know, imagine Snow White, but WALL-E, and you're just going through the movie and things are happening, and
I would do it more of like think a bigger picture, and what does better is like, you know, what Little Mermaid Adventure is, where it's that Omni movie that's constantly going, it never stops, and it has 1,000 people in there. Yeah, it's not music driven like you know, WALL-E isn't music driven like that, but there's so many things you can do, and it could be amazing. That could be a really cool idea.
I like that a lot. And I feel like, again, if we're gonna, I'm still torn because I feel like we're still hodgepodging though. We've got all these different things that don't necessarily match, and it's not a deal breaker, but I think that's exactly why they're having so much struggles in you know, Disney Burbank and Disney Glendale, because it's like, okay, well, what do we do with this? It's working for now, but like, how do we the last time we tried this 20 years ago, and this is like the longest time that they haven't done something big. Like this is like the longest lapse of time that they've done something in Tomorrowland, but I think they're a little scared on like, okay, well, what is this next step? Because it's got to be amazing. And it's and we just put, you know, umpteen billion into Star Wars on the other side of the park. So Tomorrowland is still not coming soon.
No, it's not. It's not at all. I mean, there's so much focus right now on Star Wars Land, Marvel. It really is on the back burner as of now, and it really, because they still have the #1 attraction there. I mean, there's things to do, but really what they need to do, and this is my final answer on this, we get Tron, the roller coaster. The Flint Arcade is there.
Yes.
We keep Space Mountain.
Yes.
Figure out a way, and this is the other thing, is if you want a show there, and we all know that the Jedi training is going to go. It's going to go to the other side of the park. Find out a way to license something for Daft Punk or some kind of future music where you can have a robot. You could, or if not, just bite their shit and do something a little bit different and keep that. If you want to keep that theme going, you have to keep it and have it be cohesive.
Nick, are you ready?
I'm ready, man.
I've got it. You know, at Universal City Walk, when you're going all the way to the back towards where they just took out the bowling alley.
Yeah.
And they had that like that zero gravity chamber that you go up and down. Imagine if Disney, like, you know, they've already like expanded themselves a little bit of trying to be more hip and things like that. Imagine if they got like a Coachella vibe for a moment here, and had these space chambers and put it to Daft Punk music and had it in Tomorrowland. And again, not just like the cheesy way that they did at Universal where you're just in a tube in the middle of a mall. No, it's all freaking spaced out and you can go up your tube and into someone else's tube. And it's almost like a human zero gravity hamster contraption, you know, where you little hamster tubes and used it, and they had it at Chuck E. Cheese and whatever. But it's the zero gravity version of that.
Right,
and
like
you're like
space.
literally fixing stuff in space, like you're like a space engineer, and the kids could do that and turn the wheels and do the things and see out in space and all of that while you're in zero G. How freaking dope would that be?
That would be amazing.
Ba-bing.
That's a great idea. See, yeah, I would keep that, and I would make a dark ride, and I would probably do Wall-E and the only reason why I said Wreck-It Ralph is because it deals with the internet. It's the only progressive technology that they're really talking about that really goes with today. It deals with that, and probably not. I'd probably go with more of a Wall-E. I would keep the theater and just kind of update it, and I would bring back a favorite. I would redo the People Mover in Tomorrowland, give it, again, a new look, and give it more life to what it is.
Here's something that's been said for some time too, and again, I'm not going to even attempt to pretend that this was my original idea, but the idea of having a second story all the way through Tomorrowland, or as much as possible.
Yes.
Because having those giant murals up and having just that dead space on the top of, what used to be Captain EO, and the dead space on the top of, again, in this plan we're talking about, most all this stuff has been bulldozed anyway, but like, what if on the bottom, general level, and at any given space, you have different ways. You have funky different elevators to get up. You have slides to go up and down that make noises that sound like the suction noise of a bank teller. Like when you're shooting out the slide from one level to the next, right? And escalators, but they look different. They look more futuristic or whatever, right? To get you up and down. So that's the engineering part of it. But like, put the shopping and the restaurants and all the stuff on the top, so it's not wasting space on the bottom. And then, and then on the bottom, it's all the attractions, and that's all the sexy stuff, right? On the bottom, and that's all the interaction, and have aliens walking around, on the same type of idea of how they are saying they're going to do in, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, or just like how in, Knott's is invested a lot in these character actors walking through, Ghost Town, right? So get the business of Tomorrowland up on the second floor, and it's still going to do well and whatever, but it's not like taking up space. Because when I go from like Star Trader and I've got to climb over strollers to then get over here to the popcorn stand, and then it's a hat shop, and then where's another ride? Oh, I got to go all the way over here. Like, stop the dead space with all this other stuff and just put it on another level and make it look, futuristic, and then even make it. I know this is a hard illusion, but like, have holograms of rockets actually taking off from the roof above what was Buzz, whatever this new attraction that would be right there. Like, actually make it look like this is a spaceport and stuff's taking off.
Yeah, or maybe rebuild the rocket like you were saying and make it where you can walk through. I mean, where the restaurant was a rocket at one point.
Yes.
You could have it be a walkthrough experience with a restaurant involved, and maybe have, the restaurant in there have screens, LED screens, so it looks like you're looking out into space, or certain things like that.
Team up again. I mean, going way back, Walt teamed with actual scientists, and they teamed with, now Monsanto is like a very evil company now, but in the beginning, before everybody was socially conscious and they realized like what some of this stuff was doing, Monsanto was sponsoring and was behind some of the things that were going on in Tomorrowland. You had he even had von Braun, a German scientist, show him how to make some of his attractions. Why not team up with Elon Musk and do something a la SpaceX, right?
Yeah.
And have that be a part of Tomorrowland, because God knows Disney, when things get old, they don't always invest in revamping it, right? Elon Musk, there's no way in hell he would let his pavilion at Disney get old.
Never. I think that's a great idea. You can, have it be space theme, or, a thing for the Hyperloop where it's a small demonstration.
Exactly. you show that. You show the latest updates that are happening with Tesla. You show the latest updates of the Falcon rockets. Like they just launched one again the other day. Like I find that stuff fascinating.
Or maybe, that documentary that Leo did, put one of those greenhouses that they're talking about and have it show how it powers the park.
What? And okay, you just sparked another one for me. Going way back in the day, they had the House of Tomorrow, and then they ended up taking it down because, again, it wasn't that futuristic anymore. Once everyone had a dishwasher and once everyone had a microwave, right? That House of Tomorrow was where, what is that now? Fairy, Pixie Hollow, or what do they call that area now? I forgot what they call it now, but at one point it was Ariel's Grotto and it was Pixie Hollow. But that little area between the castle and Tomorrowland, they had this giant rubber monstrosity thing called the House of Tomorrow. It was this big rubber house that stood up off the ground. But again, you don't have to reinvent the future. That still was a genius idea, but why don't you just do it again and just do it right? And you can just keep updating it with stuff like, oh my God, like here's the teletransporter in our house and here's this,
Or
totally could do that.
And that could be a way to maybe have new artists come in as well, where it's outside of thinkers, not even necessarily invention, but just an outside thing. Or there's plenty of opportunity out there for them.
They got away from that. Don't be afraid to collaborate. You know, just the guys that, again, I have mad respect for the Disney Imagineers, but again, none of us have all the answers. Team up with Elon Musk. Team up with the people from Coachella. Go with the vibes of what people are doing.
Absolutely.
Have something that talks about, plant medicine and alternative things and alternative medicine and things that the way that people are going.
I think that you build the rocket and there's space in between and it takes off every once in a while and sprays water and it could be a cool down spot as well. There's so many things, but there needs to be, with this cohesive idea, full package. So bring some new elements, Tron roller coaster, Flint Arcade, and also bring back the people mover.
All right.
We need it.
Okay. So real quick, do you still have your list from when we were walking around the initial Tomorrowland?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So before we get to SoliDude of the week, I want to go by this list really quick. So we're just going to go real quick: bulldoze or keep or change.
Sure.
Okay.
Space Mountain.
Keep.
Submarines.
Bulldoze.
Autotopia.
Bulldoze.
Star Tours.
Move.
I'll move it.
Move it.
AstroBlasters.
Bulldoze.
I think that one's just gonna get repurposed somewhere else.
It's already been repurposed. It's called Midway Mania.
Tomorrowland Theater.
Bulldoze. Or change if there's a really great concept.
Rockets.
Bulldoze. Not interesting anymore.
Nope. America Sings or Bulldoze. And the last one is the restaurant in that area.
Tomorrowland Terrace.
Bulldoze.
Monorail.
You know what? I honestly think, and this is such a Band-Aid, they need to redo the whole thing.
Yeah. Redo it.
Redo the route. It doesn't go through California Adventure. You're going to make a new stop for your new hotel. Change it up in Disneyland.
Yeah. It winds around too much. It's not necessary. It could literally loop one time and that's enough.
Perfect.
All right. And now we come to the conclusion of this episode. It's our first episode of Dream Parks. So that was kind of fun. It was very thorough.
It was.
Okay.
Really trying to paint a picture.
Exactly. But again, these are going to continue in the future. But before we wrap up, we got to get to SoliDude of the week.
You know it, players.
All right.
Jason?
Yeah.
Who are you nominating this week?
All right. Well, this is going to be a little controversial. But again, I like stirring the pot. My SoliDude of the week is Tony Baxter.
Damn!
And the reason why, and again, a lot of people disagree, I loved Tony Baxter's Tomorrowland of Disneyland Paris, and I love Tony Baxter's Tomorrowland of Disneyland California of 1998. Again, there are a lot of problems now, but it's 2018. And I honestly feel, again, I don't work there anymore. I haven't worked there for many years. I don't know the politics. I honestly feel like people started hating on Tony Baxter, and I feel like they sabotaged, because when you look at how his land was functioning when they opened it, right? It was genius. It was an optimistic look at the future, and they were growing, plants, next to like big funky buildings and the rocks. And I got what they were trying to do. And the rocket rods was fun. It was genius. If they cheaped out on it, well, that's a budget issue. But they could have fixed that.
Yeah,
they could have continued to make that land function in its idyllic look into the future with still like some, Jules Verne type of ties to the past. But they did not embrace it. And then they just kept putting mistake after mistake and Band-Aid after Band-Aid. And I feel like they really kind of like crapped all over what he was trying to do. In Paris, it still works.
Yeah.
And they have, Jules Verne, and you've got the Nautilus there bubbling in a lagoon next to Discovery Mountain, which literally shoots like a rocket on the outside of the mountain. And then behind that, they had Captain EO, and they had this giant balloon ship, coming out of its hangar there, and like all of that survived in the same area and looked beautiful and looked futuristic and looked very European.
Yeah.
So I say, Tony Baxter, you are a genius Imagineer. You put amazing work in, and we'll do a future thing to talk about all the other work that he done. But I feel that that his Tomorrowland deserves respect for what it was, and anything trying to hold on to the future after 20 years of it not being cared for right. Of course it's going to be problematic, but that's not his fault. He deserves credit. You're my solid dude of the week.
Boom. I love you, Tony Baxter. You're my favorite too. So
I
have no problems with that.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. And next time, Nick, don't be shy to ask him for a picture when we run into him. We saw him in some place where you're not supposed to take pictures. We were guests at the Club 33, and Tony was there, and yeah, we didn't grab a picture because it was.
I did grab his ass though.
It was, and he smiled.
He did.
But anyway.
He said Tomorrowland.
Exactly. All right. Thank you for listening to Dream Parks. So this is our podcast. Technically, it's episode 8, but it's Dream Parks episode 1, Fixing the Mistakes of Tomorrowland. Aloha, Nick. I love you, brother.
I love you too, J-Rad LA. And just remember, guys, you're listening to
Dream Parks.
I love you, assholes.
Yeah. Well, and if we're gonna do one last one on the way out too, let's also give them a version of the theme song of Carousel of Progress. It's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, shining at the end of every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Exclusive,
man.
Man.
There's a lot more to it, but
that guy,
I
didn't
won't
realize
scare
you were
you.
a songbird.
All right.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah. YouTube, Instagram, like us, follow us, subscribe. We'll make it worth your while. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.